Okay, now that we have our horse drawing done, we're gonna go ahead and do some media explorations. Again, media is just another word for art materials. So to start off, we're going to take our paper and we're going to fold it in half. And then we're going to fold it in half one more time. So that now we will have 4 boxes. And the first media we're going to start with is just regular graphite pencils. I'm going to get my picture over here so that I can look at it while I'm adding value. I'm going to start with a regular pencil, which is a number 2 pencil, because I'm noticing his head is pretty dark. I'm going to go ahead and start layering in some color. I'm going to, or not color, but value. And I'm going to start really light. And I'm just doing small, short strokes. And I'm holding the pencil towards the back. And I'm going to do this in real time so you kind of get an idea of the amount of time this takes, because it's not something you can do really fast. And I'm trying to keep my lines pretty smooth so that I'm just getting kind of the same value all across his face, and I'm going to go all the way down to where this box ends. I'm noticing that the mane, his hair is going, you know, from top to bottom. So I am going to, as I shade this, go in the same direction that his hair is going in on his mane. It's kind of important as you're shading to kind of go in the direction of whatever your drawing is going. So for example, the hair on his mane is going up and down, so I am shading up and down. Right? On his neck, it's pretty much going up and down. Right here, it's kind of rounded. So when I get to this point, I'm going to kind of round out my lines as I'm shading. So here it's still pretty straight. Again, I'm not getting too dark right now. And then right here it's kind of rounding. So as I shade, I'm gonna kind of round out those lines. That kind of helps give the horse a little bit of dimension. So now that I have like a basic light value, now I can go in and kind of darken it up. So I think I'm going to go switch to a 6B pencil. A 6B just means that the higher the number is on the pencil, the softer the lead is. And with softer lead, you can go a little bit darker. So I'm looking at the picture and seeing where the dark areas are, and I'm going to kind of go in and just lightly add some darker shadows to that. And I'm just doing it in small strokes right now. Then you don't want to get too dark too fast, because it's a lot harder to fix. If you get too dark, you can always go darker if it's too light, but sometimes you can't always get the lightness back. So I'm noticing a little shadow between where his chin is right there, so I'm just going in and kind of adding that. And I'm going to kind of darken up this edge right here of his head. And then kind of under his neck is a little bit darker. So I'm kind of seeing where I put the lines right here for his mane. And I'm kind of, as I'm shading that, just kind of adding that in a little bit to kind of help give the effect of his mane, his hair that's coming down. And I'm trying to shade mostly in the same direction. I'm going mostly up and down. And I'm kind of adding some lines in here for these spaces between his hair. And now that I've added those lines, I can kind of go in between them and kind of add some shading to that. And I'm noticing his shoulder is a little bit lighter right here. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker on the edge right here. And again, I'm kind of rounding that as I shade it. That gives the horse a little bit of volume. And I'm licking his nose. His nostril is pretty dark, so I'm going to kind of go in. And I'm just kind of looking at the shape it's making. Kind of almost this like half moon shape. His eye is a little bit darker, so I'm going to go ahead and go in and darken his eye. I don't really see a highlight in his eye, but I'm going to go ahead and add one just because I kind of like it that way. So I'm adding a little bit of a highlight by not coloring in completely. And then he kind of has these eyelashes. And then right here he's got some mane parts, so I'm just going to kind of draw in some lines for where his hair is. And then his ear is a little bit darker in the front. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of, again, since his ear is a little bit rounded, kind of rounding that off. I'm not doing the whole ear because there's a little bit of a highlight there. And his ear back here is pretty light. I'm just going to add just a little bit more darkness. And then I'm just going to add in a few lines to kind of give it the effect of his mane. I'm not adding in every line, I'm just adding in a few. And I'm going to kind of round it off here at the top. Kind of make it look like it's going over his shoulder. I think his neck needs to be just a little bit darker. So I'm going to go in and add some more darkness to that. Because his neck is pretty dark. Then I'm seeing a little bit of shadow over here, kind of by his eye, a little bit above his eye. Let's kind of look for the shapes that the shadows are making. I'm just going in and kind of darkening up his face a little bit more. And if you want to soften up some of your shading, these are called blending stumps, and they're really good for going in and just kind of blending in the shading, kind of softening it up a bit. Just kind of going in small circles. I'm not going to blend the eye too much. I'm just blending around it. And I'm also not going to blend the mane too much because I don't really want to lose those lines. Kind of under the neck, I'm going to blend some. Then I don't like the way that those lines are standing out so much, so I might just kind of go over the lines. Without, I don't want them to completely disappear. I just want them to soften up a little bit. So I'm just going right over the lines. I might add a little bit of contrast in between some of this hay to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And then we also have these kneaded erasers that are really nice. Once they get dirty, you can kind of stretch them out and clean them by kneading them. That's why they're called kneaded erasers. They're also really nice to get in for details. So like if I want to try to get this little white spot back at the top of his head, I can kind of go in and just erase a little bit. To kind of get that back. And then I can go in and kind of make the shape a little bit more. Like so. I'm not going to worry about the background right now because like I said, we're just kind of experimenting with media. The next media I wanted to show you is oil pastels. So oil pastels are kind of like crayons. They're a little bit softer. I'm going to go in and let's see. First, you're going to, before you want to do this, you're going to want to kind of decide where your light is coming from. I'm saying since I started using this picture and the shadow's kind of right here, the sun must be up around here somewhere. So if the sun's coming this way and the light's coming this way, then right here on his leg, there should be probably a little bit of a highlight. So I'm going to start with the yellow. If it's dirty, which they often get dirty really easily, you can take a paper towel and just kind of rub it on a paper towel. You can even color it a little bit on a scrap piece of paper to clean it off. And I'm just going to kind of add and highlight towards the front of his leg, and then we'll start with like a light brown. Let me clean that off first before I use it. And the best way to blend these is going to be to just blend them right on top of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with this brown. You're going to notice you can't get a whole lot of details with oil pastels because they're a little bit big and clunky. And go in with a darker brown and kind of add a little bit of shadow towards the back. And then I'm going to go back in with this lighter brown and kind of blend it together. So you can kind of see as you blend on top of them, they blend together pretty nicely. I highly recommend not using black until the very end. And I'm just going to gently kind of wipe those away. I don't want to wipe it too hard or it's going to show up on my paper. This is also good for adding texture. So if I wanted to add grass, right, I could do lines like so. I'm not going to do the whole area. going to do this little section so you kind of get an idea. So I might go in with even a lighter green. And I could even go in with like a darker green and add a little bit of 3D-ness, dimension to this. As you can see, you just kind of have to layer it on top of each other. If you accidentally get where you don't want to get, you can kind of take your fingernail and scratch some of that color off. And then I think I'm just going to go in with this light green and kind of blend it all together to kind of get rid of all these spots right there. But as you can see, I can still see those dark lines that I made. So it's kind of adding some texture like it's real grass. I am being careful when I get right up next to the horse's leg to try not to get into the leg too much. So you do have to layer these quite a bit to get the nice blending effect. You are not going to be able to get a whole bunch of layers of graphite down or a whole bunch of layers of oil pastel down on this paper, just because it's thinner paper. But right now we're just experimenting. So for today, I just want you to work on these 2 squares, or whatever 2 squares you choose, to work with some graphite, some pencil, and work on shading with that, and then to work on the oil pastels and layering with that. Again, when you're done, if you want to add black to it for a little bit of just to make some things stand out, I would not outline the whole thing, but as you can see, that black kind of blends into everything. That's why I highly suggest waiting till the very end to add the black if you're going to choose to use that.